Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's not him, Mark. It's me, Tim. And you are watching or listening to Talking Joe, the longest running and best dedicated comics G.I. Joe podcast. Mark, mastermind and technical genius of Talking Joe, is a tad under the weather. So he is here and he's running the technical side of things, but has given me reign to run the show today from the talking side, and we're going to get right into it. Ordinarily, we are talking about new and past issues of G.I. Joe comic books. Today, we are talking with friend of the show. Sorry about that. I'm having some today. Today, we're talking with friend of the show, art collector, and prop store person, Chuck Costas, and we are talking about the Propstore G.I. Joe movie auction of props and costumes from the 3 live-action G.I. Joe films. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can chime in with comments, which Mark will make appear on the screen. If my microphone drops out again, I am sorry, and I will very quickly fumble and get my sound working again. I will very quickly get again. Let's bring in our guest right now. Everyone, it's Chuck Costas.
Hello, everyone. I am live here from Los Angeles at the Propstore headquarters. This is my day job. I know last time I was on, I was probably from my house. But behind me, you'll see some of the props and costumes that we've got featured in the Propstore auction. We should probably just let people know up front, if you want to look at all the things that we're going to be talking about today and play along, you go to propstore.com or propstore.com/GI Joe, and you can find the auction there. It is now live and goes through July the 7th. But as a G.I. Joe fan myself, it's an honor to be able to bring other fans sort of physical representations of the G.I. Joe universe through the movies. And so we've got items from all 3 of the movies. I know in the past there's been some auctions for G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, but now we've got things from G.I. Joe Retaliation as well as Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins to offer folks. So we're very excited to be able to offer this stuff to you guys for the first time. I came dressed for the occasion because there are items in the auction that you too can wear if you choose to do so, like I am right now. And I find that one of the cool aspects of collecting this type of stuff.
So, Chuck, just to clarify, if someone wins an auction and pays for a costume, they do not have to put it on a mannequin in a glass case in their home. They can wear it and sleep in it and go grocery shopping in it?
Yeah, they can. It depends on what you're doing. I'm not sure I'd show up with this Snake Eyes costume at your local grocery store. You might freak some people out. But I think, something like this, which is just sort of one of the background jackets or some of the patches and other things like that, you can do with as you will. I think that's the great thing about it. Everybody thinks of, buying things in auctions and keeping them in a museum, and you can. You can put it wherever you like. You can put it at work. You can put it at home. But I do think I personally enjoy wearing one of these jackets out at a convention. It'll keep you warm during the cold air conditioning that's coming down in the summer at one of these shows. But yeah, no, I think you can. That's the great thing about this. You can do with it as you want once you purchase it. And frankly, the other myth about auctions is that everything will be so expensive. Well, everything in this auction is starting at $100. We've got over 180 lots in the auction, and everyone starts at $100. So some of them may just go for $100. Some may go for a bit more. But it's up to you as a G.I. Joe fan to bid in this auction and determine what the price is.
Chuck, for us novices, what is a lot in an auction?
What is a lot? Well, a lot is a compilation of items. Sometimes it's one item, but sometimes we've put together, for instance, we have jackets. We may have, 4 or 5 jackets that are put into a lot that you can purchase. So when you purchase it, you get all the items that are in that lot. But we've tried to curate things into lots that make sense if you were collecting this stuff. So obviously, instead of just selling one patch, we might have a lot of 100 patches there. So that you get a variety of different ones, and you can break it down. You can share it with your friends. You can give them out if you're a Joe fan. What better way to give people gifts than to give them something that was actually part of the production of one of these G.I. Joe movies?
And that term lot is a way of grouping items together that makes sense. For example, if one is buying a costume, it might include a helmet and a shirt and pants. That's 3 items. That would be a lot. Okay.
That would be a lot. And sometimes we have a Cobra soldier costume along with a G.I. Joe costume as well. And that might be a lot as well. And we've tried to put together what we thought were different lots that people might just want. If they just want to buy one thing, in each lot, they'll get some cool stuff that they can display. And it could be one thing or it could be many things. So take a look through that. And I always encourage people to look at it from the eye of, if you've got some other friends that enjoy G.I. Joe as well, if you buy a lot, maybe you split the lot. Maybe one person buys one lot, one person buys another one, and you guys sort of swap the different things that are in there. So if you buy a helmet lot and somebody else buys a costume lot, maybe you can do some trading and put together, what combos that you might want to wear out to a G.I. Joe convention.
Chuck, we have a small contest running today during this very live stream. What do you have for some of our listeners?
Well, let me grab it here. It's a lot. We've got a patch and pin lot that you can win here. And I'll show you some of the lovely items. Actually, I'm modeling some of these. So one of the cool items that you get in there is a Cobra pin. And I'll show you one of these up close. This is a pin that was used in the movies here, and you'll see the Cobras wear these on the lapels. It's really cool because it is made out of metal, which is really cool and custom made for the show, I believe, or for the movies. You also get a number of different patches. So we've got a silver, we've got a green, we've got a brown. So these are patches that would have been sewn onto the costumes. I don't know if I actually have one on this one, but they might have gone onto the sleeves of the costumes. But they kept extras. Some of them are Velcro on the back. So this is black Velcro. Some of them are just patches that you would actually sew on. But we've tried to put together a variety of the different colors, shapes, sizes. So you get one of each of those different patches that's here. But then you also get some pins. So for instance, you get a lovely, if you can see this, and I'll actually just put a close-up version. This is a G.I. Joe hat pin that I believe you see sometimes people wearing. So this is an actual metal pin that was created for the movies, which is pretty awesome.
And we're going to be giving this prize pack. And we're going to be giving away 2 sets to a lucky listener viewer, and also a different lucky listener viewer today during this live stream. So stay tuned and don't touch that dial, to use some outdated media terms for all you folks watching on your devices. Because after Chuck shows us and tells us about a couple of these cool lots, we will tee up our first giveaway. Chuck, can you spend 30 seconds or a minute just reminding people who don't know you, maybe 2 minutes, what is your connection to G.I. Joe separate from Propstore, and why were you on Talking Joe in the past?
So I am a longtime G.I. Joe artwork collector. So I started collecting, I guess my first exposure to G.I. Joe is I met Larry Hama back in 1985 at a comic book convention, sat next to him, didn't really know who he was aside from the fact that he was somehow associated with G.I. Joe. And he was kind enough to draw me a Scarlet sketch. And from there, it developed my love for original artwork. That was the very first piece of art that I had. So then, I started searching out a G.I. Joe original art. So I met Mike Zeck back in 1986 when he was drawing the G.I. Joe covers. And then monthly I would buy every cover that Mike offered my way. And then I went back and collected a whole bunch of other artists, Herb Trimpe, Mike Vosberg, all those early Marvel comic books, I'd go out and search the artwork. So we did a whole episode talking about some of the great finds in my original art collection, which was very nice. But as I've evolved as a collector, I also discovered movie props and costumes. And so my day job is working. I'm the VP of Business Development here at Propstore, which means that I work with the different movie studios and television studios to put together auctions. And sometimes, here we were lucky enough to gather the things directly from the source. This is all stuff that is coming directly from the studios that we are selling. But I guess as I've evolved as a collector, I always like, the artwork is great to be able to display on the wall, but having physical representations, whether it be costumes or props, is also a good way to sort of make your collection more real world in some ways. And so that's why I developed a love for the G.I. Joe movies. I know, some people love them, some people maybe not so much. But personally, as a G.I. Joe collector, I've loved to see some of the intricacies, and so have studied the movies over the years and grown fonder of them as I've watched them over and over again. But I've always also still keep my G.I. Joe collection. And I do display it. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that. I have a display going up right now at Indiana University.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me jump in. Okay, so
yeah.
So Chuck, in addition to being a G.I. Joe art collector and and a VP at Propstore, and very particularly keyed into G.I. Joe props right now, you are also a Mike Zeck expert, and you specialize in collecting the artwork, the original artwork of Mike Zeck. So tell us about this show that you put together.
Yep. I put together. So Indiana University was my alma mater, and the place at Indiana University that they're featuring this was actually my art school when I was going to school there, and ironically, it was my dad's grade school back in the 1940s. So it's amazing to see the evolution of a building and how it has sort of followed me throughout my entire life. But now, I was talking to them. I was visiting. My parents actually used to live in Indiana there, so I would take trips, and I happened to talk to the curators working there and said, hey, I'd like to do this exhibit on Mike Zeck. And they said, hey, that's great. We've got a comic book collection that we would like to feature, because a lot of people don't know that we have this huge library of comic books that was donated by folks like Ray Bradbury and Michael Uslan. And so they said, let's, you provide the artwork, and then we'll provide the comic books. But then we also, as we were talking about it, what we realized as we were putting together sort of Mike's Marvel career is, Mike really inspired a lot of the things that are going on in movies and television. And so like his version, I think everybody remembers the G.I. Joe 63 cover, which, Snake Eyes version 2. And I think a lot of, the movies took inspiration for that. So as we see sort of the costumes, I put, I was not a Propstore employee at the time, but I participated in the first Propstore auction that happened years ago for G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra, and I bought a Snake Eyes costume. And so that and a Scarlet costume that I purchased in that first G.I. Joe auction are on display so that people can see it. And I think for me, putting that artwork up next against the props is a great way of sort of showing that, but it also shows how things have evolved from comic books into movies over time.
All right, you and I are speaking right now at the end of June 2025. Where again exactly is this show of artwork, and how long is it on display?
It is at Bloomington, Indiana, which is the main campus for Indiana University. It is going on, I believe, through at least February or maybe April of next year. So so you've got until 2026. It is free to the public. It is at what they call the McCullough School. So if you happen to make it to Bloomington, Indiana, which is in southern Indiana, please stop by for the day and take a tour. They also have, if you go online, and I'm sure you can search for it, just go for Mike Zeck and Indiana University. They actually have an online, version of the exhibit that you can view, and you can actually see. We had Mike was kind enough to contribute, words about his career throughout, and sort of giving a sort of a guided tour for folks, from the artist himself. So that's available online if you can't make it in person. And there is some G.I. Joe art from my collection there. There is the front and back cover to G.I. Joe Yearbook 3 on display, which was one of my favorite pieces that featured both Snake Eyes and Scarlet. I didn't have a ton of room to show G.I. Joe in this exhibit, but thought it was an important part of Mike's technically Marvel career. that we put in there. So stop by, see the props and costumes there, as well as the GI Joe artwork. And hopefully I will get a chance to do more in the future, and maybe I'll come back and we can talk about that. But for now, I think this is a great exhibit, and I thank the people over at Indiana for being able to host this, because they did a fantastic job. As you can see, some of the graphics that they put together and just sort of the layout is really top notch.
Listener, viewer, friend of the show, Diana Davis asks, Chuck, are you in Valencia near Hasley Canyon?
You are correct. I'm not sure how you can tell from my background here, but yes, we have Propstore is located in Valencia, California, which for those that know the area, we're right next to the Six Flags over here. So if you're going to spend the day over there, we're here. But somewhat of a nondescript building. We've got all this really cool stuff in the building, but we don't necessarily open to the public. But we do have a bit of a display going on right now for those fans of G.I. Joe. Before
we get to G.I. Joe movie costumes and props, I'll just put in a quick word about visiting galleries that display original comic art in person. Talking Joe, that's Mark is asking, is it possible to visit in person if you are special like Diana? Chuck?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, we can arrange for you to visit out here, and I can give you a special tour if there's particular items that you want to see before the auction ends on July 7th, 2025, since this may live on past that. You're welcome to come out here, and I'm happy to show them to you. So just email me at Chuck, CHUCK, @propstore.com, and we can hope to arrange for something.
All right. Diana notes that she was outbid on the item she was most interested in. I think I was also interested in that item. Anyway, we'll talk about props and costumes in just a moment. I just want to put in a quick word. Folks, if you have... Here we go.
Sorry, Tim, I can cover for you. So.
And here we go. Okay.
You're back. I can hear you. Yeah.
I'm having some audio difficulty today. Many times I have been fortunate enough to visit galleries and museums that have art shows of original comic art. Some of it is very specific, like a Mike Zeck show in San Francisco. Some of it is broader, like Spider-Man art. Some of it is an entire category, like undergrounds of the 60s and 70s and early 80s. And I feel a little bit like we've won, like the nerds have won when comic arts is in a frame on a wall in a museum or gallery. But also, even though I own some, it's really exciting to see the actual ink on the actual paper, big in its original size with no color, sometimes with no logos if that was on an overlay. And so, folks, if you have the chance to see this Mike Zeck show, I have not seen this one. I have seen a one. Even if you own an artist's edition that you bought at your local comic book store, in front of the actual object, there's a particular magic. Folks,
thanks for saying that, Tim. I agree. Especially in this case, although not G.I. Joe, we have some Punisher-related pieces from Mike Zeck's career, and those paintings that he had done for the original limited series are so big and so vibrant. And to see them without the logos and see them up close and impersonal is just sort of a life-changing. For me, it was a life-changing experience, because that's how I first met Mike Zeck and got to see all 5 of those covers. We've got a couple of those on display at this exhibit, but agree that when you can see some of this original art, it's I don't know, it makes you just appreciate the fact that these people are artists and they're not just putting out a product.
Those are Punisher covers that Zeck penciled and Phil Zimmelman painted on top of.
That is correct.
Yes. Okay. Folks, if you're just joining us, Mark, host and mastermind of Talking Joe, is here. He's running the show behind the scenes. If you put comments into YouTube, he can put them here up on StreamYard for everyone to read. And we are joined by Chuck Costas, who's a VP at Propstore, as we look at, and we're starting right now, props and costumes up for auction right now from the 3 live-action G.I. Joe films. So before we talk about how you arrange an auction or get ready for it, Chuck, can you pick 2 or 3 of your favorite items from the G.I. Joe movies Propstore auction?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're showing a picture right there, and he's standing behind me. I think this Snake Eyes costume from GI Joe Retaliation has been one that, frankly, I've been searching for an example of this for years. So, I have one that is on display at the Indiana University exhibit from the first movie, but had never seen one from the second movie. And I think, as I did my research on this, I actually had the pleasure. Just by chance of meeting the costume supervisor for GI Joe Retaliation, and was talking about the creation of these costumes. And I was like, I've never seen one of these helmets. They've never been out there. I know that they were made by Jose Fernandez, who's a masterful maker of some of these costumes and props out there. But I'd never seen one in person. And what he told me is that, these costumes were extremely expensive to make. The helmets alone cost, I believe, $30,000 or $40,000 to make one of these helmets. And so therefore, when they made the production, they had to be very sparse in ordering those. And so many of the helmets ended up, obviously, and Paramount maintains an archives for themselves, and they keep what's important to them. So there are some that are sitting there. So some that had gotten out to the public, I had never seen one. So to be able to offer one to fans that also includes the armor is just fantastic. So I have to say this is one of my favorite pieces. And to be able to study it, it is a masterful helmet. I mean, it's one of the best movie helmets that I've ever seen.
All right, let's pick two more. That is a favorite costume of yours from this auction, and that's from Retaliation, from the second live action film. Is there an item that jumps out at you from Rise of Cobra, the first film, or from Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, the third film?
Well, I'll go to Rise of Cobra. I think Ripcord's liquid armor from that first film. I do have Scarlet's, again, is on exhibit over at Indiana University, but this was Ripcord's. And what's also very cool about this one is it is what we call screen matched. And let me explain that to you, because we do have what we call a screen match gallery at propstore.com that you could look at. But for movies, what makes something even that much more collectible is if you know that the item that you purchase, many of these costumes are made. So I don't know exactly how many of Ripcord's armor there were, but let's say there were 3 to 5 of these pieces of armor. Some were worn, some may not have been seen, or may have been worn by the stunt actor, so you don't see it close up, so you don't get to sort of study it and see all the flaws on it. In this case, you can see in this particular scene that this armor was worn, and you can tell that by the very distinct sort of scratches that you see on these, and they added that with paint on top of the rubber that they used to make these costumes. But it was great to be able to identify that this was one of the costumes that was actually seen on screen in a very particular scene.
And then how about from the third movie? Favorite costume or prop in the auction? Something you might be tempted to bid on yourself.
Well, I will actually pull it up here. So I think you guys had already mentioned it. For the third one, I think the key prop that a lot of people were attracted to is this. And I believe Tim, is this the one that you were thinking about bidding on yourself?
Yes.
Yes. What's really cool about this, it actually opens up at the bottom. So
sorry, can we name it? This is the Light Up Arashikage Jewel of the Sun.
That is correct. It is the Jewel of the Sun. And it looks like they made some practical versions of this, but to get the lighting effect, now this is one that we added after the fact, but we assume that they use something very similar to this. They have these light up things that they make they're not actually made for shoes, believe it or not, but you can actually use them as movie props, and then you can insert them inside and it lights it up. Which I think is also a very cool thing. So we have 3 different versions of the Jewel of the Sun here. Some have black spots on them. Those were created for when they were doing the visual effects. Sometimes they use those spots to sort of track where a particular thing is, and they use that later on for visual effects. But then you can change this one, and you can actually sort of make it look like it's coming to life here by adding a blinking effect to it. So I think this is a really cool piece, and the key prop from the third movie, in my opinion. So I'll hold that for
now. I'm just thinking Nightlight in in my hallway outside my bedroom. I have lost sound again. 1 second.
No, we can hear you.
Sorry. Okay. Now might be a good time, Chuck, to offer our first contest, our first of two small prize packs. Folks, if you are watching the show or listening to the show, the first person who sends in the correct answer, which Mark will filter and put on screen, you will get one of these pins and patch sets that were made to be in these live action films. And your trivia question related to these movies, folks, is which Joes are the only two Joes who appear in both Rise of Cobra and Retaliation? All right, while all of you race to your keyboards or move your thumbs across your phones very fast, Chuck, maybe you can tell us, and Mark, if you get an answer, maybe hold off until Chuck finishes this answer before you put it on screen so we're not going in several directions. Chuck, how does Propstore prepare for an auction like this? Because there are all these different items. They need to be found, donated, acquired, cleaned, presented. What do you do?
Well, I guess there's two ways that we acquire things. So sometimes for what we call our multi-consignor auctions, and so Propstore holds those throughout the year. And in those auctions, we may have 600 different titles that we're offering as opposed to just G.I. Joe. A lot of that stuff is coming from people that may have worked on the set. They may have worked somehow, somehow been connected with the movie, and or collectors that have somehow ended up with this stuff over the years. So we'll source those from individual consignors. But for a single title or a single themed auction like this, many times we'll work with the studios directly to source the content. So after a television show or a movie wraps, this stuff will typically either go into the archives or go into a storage locker. And then, at some point they'll make the decision that it's okay to sell it. And so in this case, it took a number of years before the G.I. Joes. I think a lot of companies, a lot of the production companies will think, hey, are we going to make sequels of this stuff? Are we going to need to reuse some of this stuff between movies? And, as this progresses, as I was even studying this, they did reuse some of the items that were in sort of, one movie versus another. And so in this case, what we did is said, what is available? What are we able to get access to from the original production company that made the movie, and what will they let go of? And so once we determined what we could source and that we could make a good auction, we went about trying to lot this in ways that we thought fans would want to own this or buy this stuff. So in many cases, we ended up with a lot of Cobra costumes, or we ended up with a lot of helmets. How do we put these, as you said earlier, lots together that we think would be interesting to folks? And then we go through the research to understand exactly, where were these used? Were some of these items, are they screen matchable? And very frankly, when I say that it's screen matchable, I think we did do the research on many of these. So for instance, Duke's costume, you'll see that the screen match pants, we found, again, the fabric that's used in these is sort of unique to each cut of it, is exactly how it sort of lays on the costume is a little bit different. But there may be other items that we didn't identify as quote unquote screen matchable that you will find in the movie. But sometimes, especially for background costumes, they're so far away that it's very difficult to screen match everything. And we didn't necessarily attempt to screen match everything. But that's also part of the fun. For instance, like that Cobra chest that you see there from the third movie, that was screen matchable based off of the wood grains that are in there, so that you could sort of see the flaws and knots and other things that are actually in the wood. That's an easy way of identifying, was this one that was actually used on screen? And so there you can see the knot sort of helped us to identify that this was one that actually made it into the movie.
All right, so you get all these items, and maybe they're coming in different shipments or deliveries. Maybe they have tags identifying them, or they definitely have tags.
They usually have. Yeah, they have production tags on it. And an interesting one was that, like, the ones for Duke were not actually labeled for Duke. They were actually labeled for a different, I guess what I would call, character. And we were sort of like dumbfounded as to why, but they had Channing, I can't say the name of the actor, but they had the main actor's name on the tags. And so we therefore I went to the costume supervisor and said, hey, is this Duke's costume? And he confirmed, yes, actually this is. So, sometimes we'll actually work with people that worked on the production to sort of confirm different theories that we have about the items and how they came to be. But then we were able to screen match the costumes that we have for Duke to specific scenes where Duke is wearing those particular costumes. So we knew that that was actually Duke's costume. And so sometimes the pieces are, not always together. It was interesting, for instance, when we found Firefly's jacket, one of the Firefly jackets, it was in the boat scene. And so I guess because it had gotten some type of water damage to it, they said, okay, we're not going to continue to use this one in main scenes where we're filming Firefly, but we'll use it as a background jacket. And so they had actually put it into the background stock. And so I was sorting through like piles and piles of background costumes that weren't that interesting and found this Firefly jacket and said, wait a second, this is definitely Firefly's jacket. And then we checked the labels inside and confirmed it was a Firefly jacket. And then we were able to put it back together with the rest of the components to complete the costume. So that's the type of work we have to do. Sometimes we'll get giant piles of boots and we'll have to sort of sort through and like match boots, and try to figure out what type of boots they are. So it is a bit of an exercise of, it can be a fun exercise, but it can also be difficult because something will be in a stack over here and then you'll find it over, you're sort of finishing up putting the costume together and then you say, oh, I found another stack of boots. And maybe, one of them, I remember seeing one that was labeled for Snake Eyes and I was like, oh, okay, then this one needs to go with the Snake Eyes costume, but it was in a pile of random boots with everybody else's. So you have to try to find the ones that are important. Some of them are just labeled like 9.5. So those are background boots. And so you have to sort of just allocate those to characters that, think it will fit the costume with.
I've had a small version of that kind of sorting once or twice. I have been at someone's home who worked on the G.I. Joe animated series. And give me a second to get my microphone back. There we go. A few times where someone worked on the G.I. Joe animated series and they have photocopies of their storyboards. And sometimes a storyboard may be, a stack of 30 pages and you're flipping through it and there's a couple pages missing, or there's a page 12 and then a page 12B and then a page 13. And for a moment you think, is there a page 12C? And so you have to do a little puzzling to put things back together. Okay, Mark, do we have any winning entries, any winners for that first? Okay, Mark says yes, and we'll get back to that. The question was, okay, our winner is Justin Taylor. The question was, who are the only Joes to appear in both G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra and G.I. Joe Retaliation? The answer is Duke and Snake Eyes. Justin Taylor, after the show, will get you in touch with Chuck. You can provide your address, and Propstore will mail you some pins and patches. Congrats, folks.
Congratulations, yes.
There's still one more, I guess we'll call this a mini lot, a contest lot of pins and patches. We got one more trivia question that we'll get to in a little bit. Why don't I pick out, Mark? It's going to be the lipstick on the last page, and the Snake Eyes motorcycle jacket. That's just the jacket on page, I forget, 5 or 6 or 7. Now I'll talk about some of my favorite props. Yeah, here we go. All right. So folks, this is something that caught my eye from the second live action film, G.I. Joe Retaliation. This is Lady J's screen matched lipstick DNA device. And Chuck, tell us, that's not actual lipstick? Is that painted wood?
I think it's actually plastic on the top. It's like a plastic cap that's on the top of that. And
okay.
It's I believe a brass exterior for the lipstick case, as opposed to it actually, which is why it tarnishes a little bit.
Okay.
But the lighting mechanism does work. As you can see, there's a USB I guess plug-in there that you can actually charge this. And we actually, there was a video that was just released today that you'll see if you go to Propstore's social channels, where I do a bit of a skit and we show this in action, and it is very cool. It works just like it did in the movie, where it sort of, advances from red to orange to green as they're processing Zartan's DNA in this, and it is an amazing. I agree with you. It's one of my favorite props too from G.I. Joe Retaliation.
All right, I think I threw Mark a red herring. There we go. Yeah, this is Mark. If you're on page 2, I'm interested in Snake Eyes' stunt Tokyo motorcycle costume from Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. I like the idea of something. I don't know if I am the same size as a certain actor or their stunt or riding double, but I like the idea, A, that I'm cool enough to pull off a leather jacket. I've never owned a leather jacket. There we go. That's the one, Mark. Thank you. My brother, when we were younger, was cool enough to pull off a leather jacket. And if such an item were to be in my possession, I think I might wear it out and not feel like it's really special and that it has to stay inside on a hanger in a closet or while I wait for a mannequin and a glass case. But because this is something that is every day, and because this is something that is, and not say a ninja costume or camo, which I could wear, but I'm less likely to. I look at this and I think, hey, starting bid $100. Why, a leather jacket might be $100 at the store, and this is
it might be more than that. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. And this is one that was in a movie that I saw, and with characters that I love, and it would have a very different and special feeling. And then I could brag to people if I was to win this auction and wear it out, and someone said, "Man, you can really pull off that jacket," and I'd say, "Guess what this is." I'm also really struck by Mark. You can jump to any of these. There are yellow Jinx costumes from Retaliation and red ninja costumes from Retaliation, and I am really struck by those because they're just a beautiful splash of color. And I look at those and I feel the potential for a fight scene. Not like I would wear it and get into a fight, but I think of these and I think. These were actors and performers who weren't just standing in the background necessarily. They were running and throwing and jumping. And maybe they were doing so on location in a practical space. And maybe they were doing so in front of a, diagonal green screen wall that would later look like a cliff. And of course, there's such so much story over 42 years of G.I. Joe comics involving particularly Red Ninja.
Also a great choice. I see where your mind is going on that. No, I think these are great looking costumes, and we've got 2 different Cobra, I guess, costumes, or we've got the black ones from the 3rd movie, and we've got the red ones from the 2nd movie. I sort of struggled, like, which one do I actually like better? The red stands out to me and makes a statement. But when you look at the black ones from the 3rd movie, what's really cool is this subtle hidden Cobra that's in the design of the leather jacket that they wear on the side, and it's kind of more of like a leather jacket costume versus a cloth costume. So I was kind of like, I kind of like that one too. So I don't know if I had to choose just one of the 2 Cobra costumes. I don't know. I might go with the black one, but I have more of an affinity for the red one there. So.
These Mark, if you're looking by lot number, I think lots 45 and 46 are also good. Well, they're not that different from the image you have on screen. So
if you blow it up, you can see on that shoulder, you can see the red Cobra that's in the design there that may be a little bit subtle.
And I think
you probably don't see that on some. Yeah.
I think I'm seeing a little bit of red sort of in the sort of the horizontal stitching between the black, I don't know what the words are, padding for the tunic, or sort of a red under layer that pokes through.
That is correct. Yeah,
So
it's the subtle thing. But yeah, use that click to zoom, and you can get some really. We try to put high res images of everything out on our website so that you can study these costumes. So if you are doing cosplay as well, this is also a great source for figuring out what these costumes look like.
Chuck, some people collect auction catalogs. Is there a paper catalog for this auction?
For this particular auction, no.
Okay.
This is a purely online one, but sometimes Propstore does offer those for certain auctions, and for our bigger multi-consigner auctions that we do, especially sort of the tentpole ones, there are sort of large catalogs you can order. But for this, online only. Yeah.
Okay.
But it will live on past the auction. So if you're watching this after July 7th, 2025, you can still go to propstore.com, look through the auction history, and find the old auction, as well as even the one that happened many years ago for G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra.
So let's go back for a moment to preparation. How you get all these costumes and props, you sort them, you screen match them where you can. Who writes the descriptions? What goes into that work? How are they lit and photographed? How do you physically plan an auction?
Well, that's getting into a lot of details. Yeah, there are a lot of people here. There's about 50 people or so that work at Propstore here in Los Angeles doing different functions. In this case, our intake team, the person that was doing the sorting, also helped to write the copy because she had done a lot of the research on these costumes and knew what they were, so that she was probably best equipped to do that. But we typically, for most of our auctions, we have a copy team that does the research on each of the items, and then they'll write the detailed descriptions. In that case, they may have to watch, multiple. They have to go to each movie that we would take an item from and do the research and find out what scenes it was used in, and do all that. In this case, I guess it's only 3 movies that you have to watch. And then we have to identify where things are from. So that's the copy side of it. And we try to be as descriptive as possible. If something, in many cases, when we get costumes, we, especially with like what they call hero costumes, and it's, you talked about a stunt one. And just to clarify what that means is the hero is typically worn by the principal actor, and it's made for close-up shots where the principal actor is wearing those. The stunt version of that is typically used for the stunt actor. So there's always a stunt double or multiple stunt doubles that may do the action sequences. And so it may not be the main principal actor that's wearing that, and you may see it more from afar. And in some cases, the stunt versions will have holes in them. Sometimes they'll use harnesses or other things to jerk the actors backwards or to keep them safe. And so you'll see some of these imperfections that are in the stunt costumes. But again, they were used on screen. Typically, I can't say everything was used on screen because there are many multiples. And for instance, with those leather jackets that you talked about from the third Snake Eyes movie, there was probably at least 10 of those that were out there. So they had used, that jacket was worn a lot throughout the movie by the principal actor. They also have what they call stand-ins sometimes when they do lighting tests on set. They'll actually have somebody else instead of the principal actor there as they're getting ready to shoot that. So they'll need multiples of those things. And typically, though, the hero is the most collectible. But when they put together a costume, they may have multiple jackets or 10 jackets, but they may not, for instance, have 10 pairs of boots. And so sometimes you'll see that there's stunt boots. And so if you can't get, the best thing to get is the main principal actor's costume. But if you can't get that, the best thing is mostly principal components paired with stunt boots, if that's all there is. And so we try to make as many complete costumes as we can, but it's not always possible. And sometimes you'll find just what we call components, which is, many of the pieces of the costume, but we don't have all the pieces of the costume because they didn't make enough to have as many multiples to complete out all the costumes. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. Mark, host of Talking Joe, says, what about this one? This has got to be one of the most out there costumes. Reminds you that all of the costumes have to be created, even mundane ones. And we're looking at lot 115. This is Snake Eyes' distressed fish boy costume. Chuck, tell us about this.
So for those that remember the movie, this is when you first are sort of, I think it's early in the movie where you're introduced to younger Snake Eyes that's working with the Yakuza. He is cutting up fish and hiding things inside there to get shipments. And I believe there's 3 or 4 of these in the auction. And each one of those aprons, the blood the splatter that you see on there, all has to be custom done. And so, in some ways, it is a true work of art because you sort of accept it for it's a mundane costume. But all the distressing of what they put in there, all the goo on there, is actually somebody thinks it through and has to figure out how do we make it look like this was actually used in a fishery. And they have to match to each of those as well. So they have to make all of these unique items, but they also have to make it so from a continuity perspective, you don't realize there are at least 3 or 4 of these different costumes that look the same, but are technically all different versions. And he may have worn one in one scene where he gets splattered, and then there's a one from before that where it's not as splattered, and then he takes it off. So that's why they need multiples of those. And the reason they also make multiples is, if they're filming and they have to reshoot a scene and somehow this does get a little bit more, messed up, they have to kind of go back and reset it, and they have to have multiples that are there. So for me, it was a memorable scene because that's really, I guess the second time you sort of see him in his cage fighting at the beginning of the movie, but this is the first sort of memorable costume I remember him wearing, as Snake Eyes.
I'm just going to reintroduce coming in late, folks. I'm Tim Finn. This is Talking Joe, host of Talking Joe. Mark is here today, but he's behind the scenes running the technical aspects. Our guest is Chuck Costas, a VP at Propstore. Chuck, what's your full title again?
VP of Business Development here at Propstore.
Okay. And from now until when is this auction of props and costumes from the G.I. Joe live action films?
Now through July 7th, 2025. And you can go see the entire auction catalog at propstore.com or propstore.com/GI Joe. That will take you directly into the auction of over 180 items. And
just remind us, the starting bid for all of these items is quite reasonable.
It is. It is just $100 is the starting bid for each of the items. There's no reserve. Sometimes reserves are put in these auctions where we won't sell an item below a certain price. In this case, if you place a bid and you are the highest bidder, you will walk away with that item, assuming you pay for it, and we ship it to you. But that's the great thing about it. There's 180 items to choose from. I think there's a great selection where some stuff will, and I think we intend it to be, some of this stuff will be, very reasonably priced. You can walk away with a background costume for, maybe $100, maybe a couple $100, but, not everything is going to go for the most money. I would think this guy behind me is probably going to be the most valuable piece in the auction, considering the helmet and the, all the other components that come with it. But who knows? You never know. It's an auction. Somebody could decide that they really need that lipstick DNA tester, and they're going to go head to head with you on that.
I think someone's going to decide that. Listener viewer Childish Landino says, my favorite has got to be the Mr. Augustine kills Snake Eyes' dad costume, just for the name. This is lot. This is lot 12. Mark, are you able to zoom in on this? There's some really lovely texture on this.
That coat is amazing in person. It's just the costume designer and the costume designer between G.I. Joe Retaliation and Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins was actually the same costume designer. It's interesting to see them change from sort of a traditional sort of military style to this Japanese inspired throughout the entire look of the film. But this Mr. Augustine with the I guess faux fur on the collar as well as the rest of that outfit it's very striking, and the colors, the maroon of it all just really do pop when you see it in person. So agree. And in the movie, it's very dark. That whole scene is lit by fire, so you really don't get to see it. And I guess they wanted to emulate the fire with having sort of the fire built into the costume itself. And you also see the reflectiveness sort of in the shirt that you would see. So there's, you only see hints of it actually in the filmed movie. But when you get to actually study the costume, you just realize, all the thought process that goes into it from the costume designer as to what they're trying to do with this costume.
And just to be clear, because we're talking about, we're using the word costume, and we're talking a lot about a coat. Mark, can you go back to the list? Can you go out of the zoom in so we can see the list and scroll down just a bit? Oh, sorry, I meant the list for that particular item, because it is not just it is also a, scroll down a little bit more, please. It's a fur-trimmed coat. It's a suit jacket. It's a down shirt, a pair of pants, a belt, boots, a cravat, and 3 production tags. So,
Yes.
So folks, this is. I mean, again, if the starting bid is $100, I guess at the moment that first bid has been achieved, and now the next bid is a small increment up. But any one of these items would cost that much if you purchased it new by itself.
Yes, as I talked about the cost of to make it one of those Sneak Eyes helmets, it was pretty exorbitant to create that from scratch. But then some of these other suits, these are some of these suits cost thousands of dollars, and things like the Baroness costume that you see, over here, that was custom made, and so all that had to be designed, and to custom make something like that will cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So when you think about what you're spending, very frankly, many times it is a fraction of what it costs to actually make that for production.
In a moment, we'll tee up our second and final trivia question for some pins and patches, a prize that Propstore has generously offered. I'll read this comment in just a moment, but I want to stay on this idea for a minute of custom tailoring. That when you go to a store and you buy a pair of jeans or shirts or a skirt, there are thousands and thousands of them that have been made, ideally the exact same. And when certainly for movies, if a bunch of characters in the background are just wearing blue jeans, please correct me if I'm wrong here, Chuck, but in many cases, the prop buyer, the costumer have just bought or ordered some jeans. And maybe in independent films with very small budgets, the actors are showing up in their own clothes. But for a movie like this, clothing, the costumes needs to look good on an actor. And so a tailor takes careful measurements of every actor, and then a designer is designing these costumes to accentuate a certain bit of their personality. If they're evil, right? If they're going to be in a scene that's lit a certain way, it has to be functional. If they're going to do something, and it's all about form and function and looking good on screen. And so, if you go to a fine tailor and get a nice shirt, that's hundreds of dollars, right? Not a shirt where they've made tens of thousands of them at a store. If you are a character in a movie and you have some armor or a tunic and it's got a very particular cut, right? This Baroness costume over your shoulder, that costume has never existed before it was made for this movie. And it has to fit this actor well. It has to look great, and it needs to represent the character of the Baroness. And so I just want to sort of hammer this home that it's not just like a thing that was in a movie that's exciting, sort of famous, as I fiddle with my microphone to get my sound back. But these items, these costumes were made for 1 or 2 or 3 people for a film, and as you said, Chuck, that's dozens and hundreds of man hours for tailors, for cutters, for people who sew, for fabric dyers. Okay, Mark, can we go back to that last comment? And you had an image of a fan on screen. I think you were queuing me up to talk about something. Okay, Chuck, what is this?
What is this? Okay. This is an umbrella, if people couldn't tell. It is actually, the way it was photographed, it was probably cut out here. It's actually a clear umbrella, and I believe you can see it behind me if you look over behind my shoulder here. But there is a cameo appearance in the third movie by somebody that is carrying this umbrella. And it was actually labeled for that person when we found it. There was actually a stack of these clear umbrellas, but then one specific one was labeled for this particular person. I don't know if you want me to say who that person is, Tim. You're on mute right now, Tim.
Thanks, Jack. Please don't reveal that just yet. Listeners, viewers, our second and final trivia question for a fun prize from the Propstore G.I. Joe movie auction is, in what movie or movies does comic book writer, editor, artist Larry Hama make cameo appearance or cameo appearances? First correct answer gets a prize from this Propstore auction, some metal pins and authentic patches.
Has to be correct. Yeah, if it's 1, 2, or 3, you have to specify which ones.
Right. This is a working umbrella, right? I could carry this in the rain and not get wet.
It is functional. I'm not sure I would use that one, but it is very cool from that perspective. But it is a clear, you don't see them very often, but it is a clear one. You can see through it, technically, yes.
Maybe I should say it opens and closes. Perhaps if it's been in a storage space for some time, I might not take it out in the rain. But as a if I try and buy that leather jacket, I might wear that out into the rain.
I actually do. There's an upcoming video that we're going to be putting out, and prior to the auction end, where I showcase this as if I was doing a singing in the rain type of condition. But, so it is really functional. It does work. I don't know if this one, although I would wear a background jacket like this, I'm not sure I would necessarily use this one out in public. It's more special because of the cameo appearance that it represents in the movie. But
okay, Mark tells us that we have a winner. Childish Landino says, Rise of Cobra, I think. Snake Eyes, definitely. You are correct, Childish Landino, and you win a prize pack of pins and patches from this Propstore auction. So comics writer, artist, editor, and G.I. Joe writer Larry Hama was a general in Rise of Cobra in that briefing scene where Hawk is speaking to some generals. That scene was cut, and Hama walks down Hama walks down an alley in the rain in Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, holding this umbrella. So, congratulations to both of our winners. Let's zoom in on one or two more cool props. Mark, can you look up lot 26? Because we've been talking about sort of the fantasy of some of these items, as well as the function of some of these items. And I'm sort of mentally putting them into categories. If I was to magically have some or all these.
Mark, I was going to say, you may just want to go to the see all auction items in the upper corner that you were looking. Don't use the top, because that searches the entire website. Go into the actual auction there. So little trick is, if you stay within that auction window, you can go to the see all auction items.
Right.
And you'll go back to the main.
And then they go up then they go up numerically from lot 1 all the way to the final, which is lot 184. 184. So I've been thinking about these categories. Some of these are functional, right? This is a thing I might actually wear, like a jacket. Some of these are sort of fantastical, like a lipstick prop that actually takes a blood sample and tests someone's DNA. Some of these are feel a little bit like cosplay, like military helmets. Some of these, like some ninja outfits, I might wear as pajamas, and it's sort of functional and fantasy. I can be a ninja while I sleep from this movie. So here we're looking at this item is the. Sorry, Mark. Can you go back to the description? You just click off the photo. This is Snake Eyes' backpack from G.I. Joe Retaliation. And then can you go back to the picture so we can see the side and the back, folks? This is a backpack. This is a functioning backpack, and imagine the thrill of going to school or work, a convention, or wherever you want to brag to your friends that you're wearing not just a cool black backpack with a cool recognizable logo on it, but that it was used in a movie. An expensive, exciting movie. Chuck, anything to muse on this backpack?
Well, no, it's funny. When I first encountered this backpack, I said, "Oh, this is a very cool backpack," because of obviously the Arashikage symbol on it. But I did not remember this where it appeared in the movie. And for those that may not remember, so Snake Eyes goes out into the sort of the mountains in the winter, and he wears this backpack with Jinx, and so he takes it off, and then puts it down. But he's originally wearing that outdoors before they start the big fight scenes. And so we did go back and find it and go, oh, this is Snake Eyes. So I first thought it was just an Arashikage backpack. And then I was like, oh, it took on that extra specialness when I was like, oh, this is Snake Eyes. A little also movie magic on the inside of it. It is stuffed. So it was not very heavy for the actor or actors that were playing Snake Eyes to carry this thing around. And it continues to be stuffed, so you can keep it in its original movie condition, or you can stuff it with whatever you'd like if you really wanted to use it the way that Tim's talking about. Put all your G.I. Joe comics in there and get them signed at your local convention.
Let's talk about another item, Mark. This is lot 33. This item is in some ways sort of the most different of all of them because it's less it's not clothing, and it's less of a usable prop and more of a fascinating object that I might put on my coffee table so that people ask me about it when they come over to my home. So
I will tell you, you better have a big coffee table if that is the case, because I will draw your attention to I think there's a little disclaimer at the bottom of like, this is an oversized object, so just be prepared to when you ship this.
So this is named the VFX Large Snake Head Stand-In. Chuck, what is this?
Yes. So for those that saw the third movie, one of the trials that Snake Eyes has to go through is he goes into a pit where there are 3 large snakes that are coming at him. Now, these were, and you can see on the back of them, there's like handles. And so my theory is that there were people on set that were actually moving these heads around using these handles to give the actors sort of the eye line to these snakes coming at them and to simulate it, because obviously that was a visual effects that was going on. The little dots that are on there are visual effects tracking markers that they can use so that when they are actually creating the snakes, they could use these as reference for the heads of the snakes so that they could create the rest of the visual effects of these giant snakes. And so these, if you saw the movie, these are about the same size as the snake heads that you see in the movie. So they are relatively large, but you could mount them on the wall. I don't know, you could put them in the corner. They are interesting. And it's also interesting that they're 3 slightly different colors. One's kind of light, one's medium, and then one's darker. And I think that was to distinguish the 3 different heads that they had, of the 3 different snakes in the movie.
When you say 3 different colors, you are referring to different items in this auction.
Yes, there are 3 of them in the auction. They all have a slightly different paint finish to them. So if, it depends on what your decor is in your house. You may choose based off of that. You may want to collect them all and have 3 large snake heads to simulate your own trial at home. Whatever you may want to do with them, but it would make it they're very cool museum exhibits, and in some ways they are statues, or they're kind of wall mounting. You can put them on your wall, and there are pieces of art that were created for a film. They had to cast these out of mold. That very good. You get to see all 3 of them sort of side by side there.
Okay, so going back to the size, right? A lipstick container that's actually for testing DNA. Very small, like the size of your 2 fingers, your index finger and your middle finger next to each other.
Yes.
The gem, the jewel, the glowing jewel, maybe the size of 2 fists, a hand balled in another hand, maybe a little bit bigger.
Not even. I think it's just 1 fist. I can sort of put it all in one hand here.
Okay. And then, but these, I'm seeing the dimensions for these snake heads: 38 inches by 30 inches by 15 inches. So this is bigger than a soccer. Bigger than a soccer ball, folks. Bigger than a bread box.
It is. So you have to have a large enough place to be able to put these out. And I also just take into account if you're getting them shipped. If you happen to live here near Valencia, I would encourage you to come pick them up in person. If you're going to get them shipped, just realize that they are kind of large and that it's going to cost a little bit of shipping money. And what we find in the prop world is the lipstick DNA tester, I can almost guarantee, is going to sell for more than a snake head, even though they are, very impressive to see these snake heads in person, just because a lot of people, anybody can put the lipstick DNA tester on their desk at home, they can find a spot for it. Not everybody is going to be able to find a spot for this giant snakehead, but that person that can, it's going to be impressive. I can tell you that much. It is. These snakeheads were just like, whoa, these are pretty cool. Yeah.
Let's do a quick call out of some other fun items. We've been talking a lot about Ninja, but folks, there's a Flint prop and a Flint. Where'd my tab go? Costume. I didn't open that tab. Let's talk about this. Mark, this is lot number 8. This is a handheld device from G.I. Joe Retaliation. This is Flint's VFX DNA reader. It's got some buttons on it and an antenna. And
yes, this goes hand in hand with that lipstick DNA reader. So for those that remember the movie, you've got Lady J, who is testing this strand of hair that she finds to see, who is the person behind this. Then you've got Flint and Duke that each have one of these that are on the other end. And the green screen is so that they could actually create the visual effects of what the DNA tester was showing them on the other end. So you don't actually see the green. The buttons, I don't believe, are fully functional, although the antenna does move up and down, so it is truly movable parts on that.
When you say green screen, you're referring generically to screen, but here it is a piece of tape. It is a piece of green tape.
Yes, and it technically is a screen on there. So yes.
Okay.
It is very green screeny, but yes, they put this shade of green so that they can mask it out, and then they can superimpose the graphics on it for those folks that aren't familiar with the green screen technology.
Okay. Thank you for the fact check. I referred before to getting a sample of Zartan's blood. That was wrong. It is a strand of hair. Lot number 3 is Flint's final battle costume with vest. It comes with a vest, 2 shirts, 2 pairs of gloves, 1 pair of pants, 1 black belt, and 1 pair of boots. So again, we've been talking a lot about Snake Eyes and Ninja and about Baroness. Folks, if there are any Flint fans out there, you could own something that the Flint character wore in G.I. Joe Retaliation.
Yeah, and I believe this is our only Flint costume that we had, which is why you get those extra components. These were all sort of wrapped in one garment bag. But I think the chest piece is really cool. It is a sort of harder plastic that I don't know if it was custom made per se, obviously custom painted, as you can see sort of the paint tones on that. There's one that I believe he wears earlier in the movie that has an F on it. This one is from later in the movie. And so we had to do, because originally when I didn't see the F, I was like, oh, is this really Flint's chest piece? But then we checked later on in the movie, and this is the outfit that he's wearing a little bit later. But the camo, I believe, was all hand painted on there by the costume team that was working on G.I. Joe Retaliation. So very cool.
Mark, can you look for lot 114? Here's another item which feels usable and common and everyday, and yet also special and strange. These are all special and strange because of movie magic and how we think of movies and how they can be aspirational, but also how these objects had to be functional for the performers on set. And then sometimes made more fantastic by effects artists. So, all right. So this we're looking. Okay. So this is from Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins, lot 114. Snake Eyes' first challenge with Hardmaster bowls. So remind us, Chuck. We're looking at 3 ceramic bowls, and one of them has tape on it for visual effects tracking. What are these? What happens in the movie?
Well, in the movie, they're trying to teach Snake Eyes his first lesson, and essentially the lesson is that diplomacy sometimes works better than pure power. And so you have the Hardmaster who is holding a bowl, you have Snake Eyes who is holding the other bowl, and the goal is to exchange bowls. And the Snake Eyes, of course, first thinks that the best way to do that is to tackle Hardmaster, and he's not good enough. And the Hardmaster keeps beating him down and taking his bowl, and so he keeps getting defeated. But then he realizes that if he just asks for the bowl, and he's polite about it, the hard master might actually give it to him. So you go through this whole sequence. But there's a whole fight sequence, and you can see sometimes in the bowls you see them spinning. I'm sure there were many of these bowls, and many of these bowls ended up getting smashed on set because they would throw them up in the air and then they would fall down to the ground, and then you lost the bowl because these are actually real ceramic bowls. The blue bowl that you see there has visual effects tracking on it, so that again, if they were animating this, and I'm sure some of the bowl spinning sequences were actually animated sequences or CG effects, as opposed to actually showing the real bowls as to what they were doing. But in this case, we had 3 bowls that had remained after production, and so we just decided to put them all together, although technically you only see 2 bowls on screen at any given time.
Mark says
we will gladly exchange you for what is called money.
Mark says
to get the bowls, yes.
Mark says you win these bowls from the Propstore auction just by asking nicely.
Yes.
So this is another fun category because we're mostly talking about costumes or helmets, jackets, tunics, pants, boots, belts, gloves, shirts. We've got a couple of these objects that are fantastical. And then this is a real world item. I don't know if I would drink or have soup out of this, but I could certainly put keys or marbles or tokens before I go to an arcade. This could be my go bowl by the door where I put my keys in my wallet. And I like the colors. And I have made a ceramic bowl and a ceramic mug, and not this one, but my other actual water drinking mug is one that I made in a ceramics course. So
the one in the bottom kind of looks like when I made one as a kid. I kind of had that same kind of patina to it. So yeah, it strikes home there.
Let's Mark, can we go to the final item in the entire auction, which is lot number 184? This is they're all the most unusual item. This is the most unusual item because it's a weapons chest. So it's a wooden crate, and it has the Cobra logo on it.
Yeah,
and
that was cool.
So tell us about this wooden crate with the Cobra logo on it, Chuck.
Well, in the movie, I believe you find that Kenta's band of mercenaries is using these crates to actually ship guns. And so I think in the movie you find probably rubber guns inside these things. This is an empty version of, empty crate, but it is a fully functional crate, and if you wanted to use this, to store your toys. And it's funny, I actually, being also a Punisher fan, I had owned a similar type of war chest from the Punisher, and I used to use it very practically to store a lot of my collectibles inside of it. And so this, I just thought was just amazing with the, it struck me that Cobra logo is on there, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I was just like, I think somebody's really going to want this, so let's put this in the auction. And I'm hoping somebody out there can make use of it, put their collectibles, or you could actually build a nice little display of things popping out of it. I think you could use it for a lot of things, but it is, as we talked about earlier, it's screen matched. We could screen match it based on the knots and the wood grain that's in there. There's also some fake FedEx flyers that are on the top and the side. What's interesting is underneath those flyers, or underneath those are designs, and it's almost like they reuse that. They either were going to put something else on it, or they reused this crate from another movie and wanted to cover up whatever that symbol is that's underneath there. And so they put these fake billing things, these fake billing sheets on there. So
arugula, freshly picked.
Yes. It's always seeing, they put these tiny little details that will never ever be seen on screen, but they put them in there almost as inside jokes, but make it look like it's part of the real world.
Mark, can you go back to the first photo of this? I'm gonna suggest a kind of I'm gonna suggest a terrible idea, which is that the winner of this could unscrew the lid and remove. Just go with me for a second. Remove the string as I fix my light. Put this case on its bottom, so you're looking sideways into a box, right? Put plexiglass on what is currently the sort of open top. Light it from behind, and then put toys in it. So if an empty crate, folks, doesn't feel functional enough for you, imagine spending at the moment not a lot of money on a prop used in a movie and transforming it through artistry into something else. And I will suggest no other ideas where anyone changes or ruins any items from this auction, because it's a strange idea.
Well, I think that what's great about these types of things is, sometimes you have a significant other or somebody else in the household that doesn't like you to collect, and show off your collecting wares. All you have to do is close the top. Nobody will know it's anything but a crate. Then you open it up and you can reveal, it's like, okay, they're gone for the day. Now I can put my collection out. I can open the top and look. It's like a G.I. Joe convention going on, all at once right there. So I don't know. I like it the way it is, Tim. I wouldn't touch it. But it's up to the eventual winner to do what they want to do with it.
I just have to say, years ago at a Transformers convention, I bought 1984 napkins and paper plates for not a lot of money, and that I'd had as a kid at a birthday party. And I thought, as a 30-something-year-old, I could open these and put my birthday cake on them, and it would be fun, like it's 1984 again. And I have not been able to open them. And just a week ago, I bought some 1994 G.I. Joe Star Brigade paper napkins, thinking for not a lot of money, thinking the same thing. And I can tell I will never be able to open those napkins and wipe my face with them. So this is an entirely theoretical idea to do anything to any of these costumes other than display them or wear them gently. Mark says, Chuck's controversial opinion, don't destroy the special thing. Mark, can you pull up lot 133?
Hopefully this is not a lot you want to destroy, but yeah.
No. This is all anyone's going to remember about this episode. Oh, Tim just wants to ruin all these movie props. Mark,
I'd say there's a fine line between, yes, I do support like taking a background costume, and I don't think we mentioned it. You talked about custom fabric. The thing I'll point out about the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra outfits is that they're very cool, and that in the camo there is the words G.I. Joe written throughout the camo. And that's what's really cool about wearing one of these. But, the motorcycle.
Okay, so, folks, this is lot 133, the Yakuza motorcycle costume with helmets. This is a very colorful, not just motorcycle jacket, but helmet with gloves and pants and boots. Light up pants. I'm seeing, what does that mean? The pants light up?
I think if you go into the movie, I don't know if we've tested the electrical on this one, but they actually do sort of have this light up effect. I think there's wires that are sort of like clear tube wires that are built into the pants that actually do light up like neon. Okay. And so again, can't vouch for the fact that they continue to work or how they work right now, but that was partly what attracted me, because when I watched the movie, I was like, man, those background Yakuza motorcycle outfits are pretty fantastic. And then I found them and I was like, yeah, we should offer, they may not be something that people immediately recognize, but somebody just may appreciate the artwork that went into creating these costumes here. Right. And as you said, if you were to buy the components of this, a leather jacket, a helmet, and all that stuff, you're probably talking easily sort of north of $1,000 for this helmet, just to buy a motorcycle outfit that looks like this. But and it's pretty cool that it's a G.I. Joe related film piece.
It was used for a movie, and I think it's worth repeating this, right? I look at this, and if I'm not sort of careful, I think, yeah, they bought a jacket and they painted it, and it's in the movie, and that is not what happened, right? Someone cut and sewed and designed components to make a jacket, or at the very least, someone took an existing jacket and cut it up and changed it drastically and painted it. And again, that is man hours. These are talented artists and craftspeople. And none of these decisions, a triangle here, a cut, a change in texture or fabric is by accident. Even if these are characters that are only on screen for a moment or in the distant background, this stuff is all, it's labored over. This stuff is all labored over. And since we have been talking a lot about the second movie and the third movie, Mark, can you go to the following lot, which is 134? And this is, where's my tab? when I think of G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, I think of, as you just described, you said earlier, Chuck, the first two movies, very military, the second movie, very ninja. And
Third movie. Yeah.
excuse me, a third movie, very ninja. And here we have Lot 134 from Rise of Cobra, collection of G.I. Joe military wear. And so this one is a tan jacket, a blue-gray jacket, a gray jacket, tan tactical vest, pants, and 3 different MP armbands, right? So, when I think of that first movie, I think of a certain color scheme, and I think of a certain overall aesthetic, and it's camo, and it's the camo they wear outside, the camo they wear in the base, and this is a cool collection of items that is at the moment got a very reasonable asking bid.
Yeah, you get one of each of the different colors that was represented in the movie. So I guess each of the different, I guess it was supposed to be their equivalent of Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And so, but yeah, what's new, these MP armbands, in the previous Rise of Cobra auction that Propstore had done, we did not have any of these. These were, I guess, sort of held back. And so we included some of those here. So this is your first time to get the MP armband that only some of the characters were wearing during that movie. And so, and they are color coded, where I believe the blacks go with the gray and blue costumes, where there's a green one for the green costumes, and then a tan one for the tan costumes, obviously, or a brown one for the tan costumes.
Maybe we'll wrap this up with just one or two more. Mark, can you go to lot 129? Again, we've been talking a lot about Ninja, and but I'm also really interested in these items that you could wear in a normal situation without feeling like you're either cosplaying or dancing around in your bathroom or bedroom pretending to be someone else. Lot 129 is General Joe Colton's stunt jacket and shirt, and
that's right.
New character that was,
yeah, new character obviously that was introduced. I think everybody remembers the actor that played this. This is the stunt version, so this was mostly worn, most likely worn by the stunt double. Although, like I said, stunt sometimes refers to just a stunt version that the main actor would also wear. But this is, I think, when we first are introduced to the character in his house, if I remember correctly. This is what you'll see Colton wear. So it's the black shirt and sort of this. And then I believe there was sort of an action figure that was made, or one of these more high-end models that I've seen out on eBay that you see Colton represented in when they did that. So it's kind of neat if you had a copy of that little statue of General Colton to put the jacket next to that in your collection. That would make a great display, in my opinion. But everybody their own. Tim would wear it, but I would probably, you could put this in a nice shadow box. I think this would look really well. But again, the only Colton item that we've got in this auction. So if you're a fan of that character in the movie, or if you're a fan in some other media, then this would be a kind of cool thing to have.
And one more item, Mark, I'll ask you to pull up lot 139. We've swung back and forth, less ninja, more ninja, regular military, some of the bad guy stuff, and this is definitely traditional Japanese costuming. So lot 129 is Hardmaster's Water Bowl fight costume. We talked about the water bowls, and Blind Master's final fight costume components. So this is a costume, a kimono, a jacket, pants, a belt, and then an outer and an inner kimono, and these are just lovely. As Mark zooms in, Chuck, tell us about these.
Well, I think they are your sort of traditional Japanese kimono. Again, I don't know if I would wear these, although you could wear these around the house if you really wanted to. But we wanted to, why do we pair these together? I think, Hardmaster and I think any of the sort of Arashikage extended team, we thought this would make a nice little combo if you kind of wanted to represent them, if they meant, something to you relative to the origins of Snake Eyes. But again, most likely all custom done for the production. I can't say exactly who made that, but typically there are costume teams that are assembled to actually make these, and they've got people on the team that actually can just sort of cut this out of the different fabrics. But yeah, I as I said, the costume designer for this, it surprised me because they were the same costume designer for the second movie as well as the third movie, and the costume designs are just so completely different. But again, they were going for a very different feel for this movie that was very Japanese oriented. So, and I think there's many of these costumes, whether it be the Baroness, I guess she's over here, even that has more of a Japanese flair to it than you would have seen obviously in the costume from the Rise of Cobra, which had more of a patent leather, what you would expect more out of the sort of traditional way that you sort of think about her out of the comics or potentially the other media as well. So,
Mark, before we leave this image, can you zoom in? I would really love to see the textures of these fabrics, because as Chuck said earlier on, these are high resolution photos, and so it's not just that you can see it from the front and the side and the back. It's that you can really get up close and see the stitching, see the different textures. A lot of these things have, subtle reflectives or translucence in them. And these are not, if you could go to a store and buy a kimono, these are not the ones you'd see there for sale. Before we wrap up and sign off, Chuck, tell us about the bidding process. What is it that makes Propstore's auctions maybe different than other auctions?
Sure. So some people, I'm sure, have never participated in a prop store. So if you go to propstore.com, there's a button when you come to the G.I. Joe auction that says register now. So you need to register for the auction. It's relatively simple, but do that in advance. The auction is going to start ending on July 7th. So you can bid now. If it's before July 7th, you can go in and bid at any time. And essentially you can place your highest bid. And if somebody else bids, it'll sort of, if you let's say you put a bid at 1,000 and it's currently at 200, it'll advance it to the next bid, which I believe would be like $225 if somebody else bids on top of you. But it won't get you to your maximum bid unless somebody else bids you up to that amount. So you can bid in advance that way. But what most people do is they wait till the very last day, sort of like with eBay. But what's a little different with us versus, say, an eBay is that if you wait to the last, every lot will end in order. So 1 through 184. Every minute it's time to end at a different on a different lot. But if you bid in the last 5 minutes of the auction, it'll extend the timer another 5 minutes. So if it's at 2 minutes and somebody bids, it'll extend the timer to 7 minutes, just to allow people to react to that. We don't really allow this last minute sniping so that people outbid each other in that sort of way. We want to make it as competitive but also as fair as possible to people. So we have this extended bidding process. And so if the timer comes down and you're ultimately have the high bid, that means you're the winner at the end of that. We typically invoice after the auction is over. So either later that day or the next day, you'll get an invoice for all the different items that you've won. But because of the extended bidding, you may have things end out of order in some way. So do watch that on the last day. The other thing that's good about Propstore versus maybe other places you bid is that we have a policy for giving people a 3-month payment plan for free. We don't charge for payment plans, unlike some other auction companies do. And so the minimum on that, though, is your total order needs to be at least $2,000, which if you're buying a few things, you can get up to that. But if you do bid over that, otherwise, we do take credit cards, as far as payment, as well as you can make bank transfers and the rest of that. But we'll invoice you, and you've got a certain amount of time after the auction to pay for your winnings there.
Chuck, is there a fee that is added to any of these auctions?
Yeah, and so that's great to note. Let's say you bid the $100 that is the starting bid for it. There is what they call a buyer's premium, and you'll see that reflected when you place your bid. What the total cost is with the buyer's premium, that's 26%, and that's pretty standard for auction houses. Is that they will have this buyer's premium, but do you take that into account when you're bidding? Is $100 really equals $126 from that perspective? Also, we're obviously obligated to charge state sales tax, so depending on where you live and where we have to mail things to. Some states don't have a sales tax, but if your state has, say, a 6.5% sales tax, we would charge you the 6.5%, where California is 9.5% for the most part, I believe. So if you pick up in person, we have to charge you California tax because that's technically where the sale takes place.
Please.
I was going to say anybody all over the world can. So we do ship. We have our own shipping internally, unlike some other auction houses that outsource all the shipping. We do it here. So there's a button that you can go to that says "Ask for a shipping quote," especially if you're going to buy, say, the snake heads, or if you're going to buy the Cobra chest, and you're wondering how much is it going to cost me to ship it to my part of the world. Please get that shipping quote in advance so that there's no surprises as far as how much this is going to cost. Shipping has gone up significantly over the years, so you do want to take that into account as you're bidding as well.
Just to go back to that buyer's premium, I will second that, folks, listeners, viewers. I have previously won and paid for an item or two from a Propstore auction, as well as two of the other well-known auction houses that deal with movie stuff and art stuff and toy stuff. And that buyer's premium is that's a standard phenomenon. So do keep that extra bit of dollars in your head as you do your calculation. Diana Davis is asking, if I win anything, would it be possible to pick it up? So Chuck, tell us about picking up.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let us know at least 24 hours in advance, and your bill has to have been paid off at that point in time. It's easier if you actually pay it before you come in and write us a check in person. That's it's for our accounting purposes. But yeah, feel free to schedule to pick it up. Our shipping team will have everything ready. Everything will come with a Propstore certificate of authenticity, and what that is essentially your guarantee. And what's a little different again about Propstore than other auction houses is where a lot of auction houses, if you really read the fine print, it's kind of buyer beware. We're selling you something, but what Propstore means, if for some reason, and I don't think in this case you're going to find it because we got this stuff directly from the source. If this stuff didn't come from one of the G.I. Joe movies, and was somebody made out of the back of the, in their warehouse, then, it would be fake. But we're guaranteeing that this thing is something that was, sourced from the production, and we're selling it to you there. We can't always guarantee that everything. If we say it was screen used, we're showing you the work that we did to say that it was screen used. And like I said, there could be some nice surprises where you actually will find some things to screen match that we have not, sort of gone to the trouble of screen matching yet, and that's always a nice thing too.
Is a jacket or a shirt, if it's been in a scene and it gets dirty, is it cleaned?
They dry clean it.
Okay, they dry clean it. Okay.
Yeah. You'll sometimes find dry cleaning tags on these things, and then some of them are unworn. And as you also sort of alluded to, some of them will come with the original. When wardrobe puts together costumes, they typically put the character's name, sometimes the actor's name, and they'll list all the components that were part of the costume, which also helps us as we're putting the costumes together. We know, what type of boots or whatever it was supposed to go with this costume, and that really helps us. We include those original, what they call production tags, that were used by, say, the costume department. Additionally, with things like Flint's DNA tester, it came with a piece of tape on it, said that like Flint's DNA tester, 2 of 2. There were 2 of them that were made, and so it gives you that sort of behind the scenes look at how they sort of stored it during production. So we include all that stuff that we can. What we don't include are pictures of the actors wearing the items. So those we're not allowed to share.
Mark, before I wrap this all up, I'm gonna kill time for 10 seconds. Mark, if you have anything else that you want me to ask or Chuck to explain, could you put that on the lower third? Chuck, before we wrap up, can you just give a quick reminder of this wonderful Mike Zeck art exhibit that is happening that you put together? Where is it happening and when?
Yeah, it is going on through the beginning, at least probably the first quarter of 2026 in Bloomington, Indiana, which is Indiana University Bloomington campus in southern Indiana. It is free at the McCullough School, which is my old art school, but it is a standalone building that they have converted into a lovely gallery. There is also a sort of a full-fledged museum at Indiana University that has other exhibits. So if you happen to be coming down, check out all the different art that they've got. But they've got a number of different galleries. I know they had sort of a guitar gallery that had some fantastic sort of pieces of history there as well. For those that collect music memorabilia, that was from the Jim Irsay collection, which I thought was pretty fantastic. But they rotate through all the time. But this one's going on. This is one of the main exhibits. It's going on at the McCullough School now through at least, I believe, February or March of 2026.
Listener, viewer Diana Davis wonders if any of the actors' sweat made it into any of these costumes. And Chuck did explain a moment ago, which I was sort of hoping to get some actor sweat, that these costumes are dry cleaned. Chuck, one last time, tell us when the auction runs until, and how can people find this online auction?
Yeah, it runs through July 7th, 2025, and you can find it. Go to propstore.com. If you're in that window, you will see it sort of heavily advertised in our scrolling windows. If you're checking after July 7th, we have an archive of past auctions. You can go to the past auctions section and you will find this auction, as well as the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra auction that happened many, many years ago, to see all the different items that were offered. And as I said, it's PropStore's website is a great resource for folks that want to do research on the items in these movies, as well as just to see what was previously sold. Obviously a lot of the studios keep their items for archives and to display for future purposes, and yes, they have kept, there are other GI Joe related items that are kept in the archives, but you can see what items were offered to the general public like yourselves. But as we talked about here, there's only one Flint, there's only one Lady J costume in this, there's only one General Jill Colton that's been released. So if you're interested in those, get them while you can. I don't believe there's any more secret stashes of this stuff that will be released as a full auction anytime in the future. So I think this is I can't guarantee that. I will go on, in case that does change in the future. But I do believe that this is your best shot. If you're a fan of these movies, you think you're thinking you're on the border. It's like, should I go? I would say, yeah, bite the bullet. I've never regretted, picking something up that I was on the bubble for. I have only regretted those things that I had a chance to get that I didn't get. So don't let that be you.
All right. So one final reminder, listeners and viewers: the GI Joe, the Propstore GI Joe movie auction is happening right now. It is costumes and props from all 3 live-action GI Joe films: good guy costumes, bad guy costumes, small props, big props. Stuff you could wear out for real, stuff you could just wear in the comfort of your home and feel like a hero or a villain, stuff that you could really authentically cosplay at a convention or an event. And Chuck, one last time, these very reasonable opening bids are what?
Everything starts at just a bid of $100, which with buyer's premium is $126, as we talked about. But yes, everything's no reserve. It's all up for sale. Place a bid, and you will, if you're the highest bid, you will walk away with that item. We'll be happy to, allow people to pick up in person if you're here near Valencia, California, which is outside of Los Angeles. Otherwise, we will make shipping arrangements. And again, especially if you're like Tim and you're thinking about getting all 3 snakeheads and a chest, please ask our shipping department, is there a way that we could put a snakehead in a chest to save a little bit on the shipping?
Chuck, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming back to Talking Joe and telling us all about your day job and this cool opportunity to bid on some cool stuff. Mark, are we going to do some of the thank you videos, or are we going to wrap up in the short, normal way? Our website, folks, is talkingjoe.co.uk, where you can find links to all of our podcast platforms with past episodes. We are on Patreon. That's patreon.com/talkingjoe. And a big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane version 2, Retaliation, Camo, Infinite Entertainment, Patrick, and Gary V. All these fine folks are chipping in just a little bit of money to help pay our bills and show their supports. And for that, they get early access to special Talking Joe content. You can find me. I'm Tim Finn, co-host of Talking Joe. I, with my partners, make video essays on TV and film history. That's at youtube.com/@AtomicAbe. I own a comic book store right outside of Boston. That's Hub Comics. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, arealamericanbook.com. Talking Joe host and mastermind Mark has been here this whole time. He's been making words appear on the bottom of the screen. He's been zooming in on images from the auction, and he put this all together for the three of us. He sends his regards. You'll see and hear Mark next time we do a regular episode when we talk about new and past issues of G.I. Joe comics. I think we're all done, so it's time for me to sing that jingle, which is that Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast. Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Propstore.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Great to be back.